Well, good afternoon. I am pleased to have you join me. I didn't expect to have a co-presenter, but this is Stella, who's decided to join just in time. Um, and I was going to talk today about the many purposes of blogs, and you are as much an expert as I am on this topic. So I'm eager to hear from you in the comments as well. I am a mid-list writer, and so I was very uh, pleased to be invited by Medium to give this presentation today. Like many of you, I probably started blogging without having any idea why I was blogging. I just felt compelled to write and get my word out there, and had learned that Medium was an platform that offered easy access. I have my own blog spot as well, but that requires more time, more talent than I have as far as the technology. And so I post first on Medium and then move some of the things that are relevant to that blog, which I call the intersection of aging and spirituality, over to that site. So I've learned to use blogs in many different ways, and perhaps you have too. The first I would say is that I use blog posts as trial balloons sometimes. I had a post idea for an ongoing column that I called Ask Miss Merriweather. And Miss Merriweather was a very proper Victorian lady who had that tone, but would talk about anything. And she was popular for the very first blog. And then I got up to 4 blogs and she decreased in popularity. So I pulled Miss Merriweather. So that trial balloon taught me that that idea was fun, but it was a no-go as far as readership was concerned. I also want to do a longer piece on Libby Custer, and did a piece on Libby Custer on Medium and got a very high response. So I thought, all right, people are still interested in the Custers, who were, by the way, the most photographed couple of the 19th century. Certainly, both George Custer and Libby Custer understood the value of marketing and PR long ahead of their time. Regardless of his reputation now, they did the most to highlight it during the 19th century. In addition to messages in a bottle, the blog, once it's out on the internet, can go to amazing and unexpected places. And perhaps you've had this experience. I saw that Janice Ian, who was a singer-songwriter of the 70s, you may or may not remember her, was coming on a final tour to our city. And although it was 3 months in advance, all the tickets were sold out. I had just finished reading her autobiography, which was very well written, and bemoaned on my blog the fact that all of the tickets were gone already for the concert. So in the way that the internet magic works, her people contacted me through the blog and asked if I would like tickets to the local concert. And of course, the answer was yes. So it really does feel a little bit like anytime you write a blog, anything can happen. And your message in the bottle can go out to people that you are not anticipating will find you. Blog posts are builders of community, and this is something that many other people who are presenting or inviting collaboration on the blog site today have also talked about. We all know that we can find our own communities in the niches that appeal to us. I have in particular been writing on aging and spirituality, and find that both Crow's Feet and Middle Paws offer a lot of interchange between the readers and the writers. And so that building community has really been one of the highlights of my participating on the Medium blog site. I have found that what I have read has influenced my own decision making. And as one deals with new experiences, it's often helpful to read or find others on the blog space that have that experience and can provide information to you or affirm that what you're experiencing is normal. I have found that one of the developmental stages of approaching age 70 is to put your life in perspective. So I don't know whether I find it a good thing or not that, yeah, I'm right on track as far as developmental stages. Blog posts can also be dialogues on issues, and in a productive way, not in a way that is just kind of rants that encourage or discourage other rants. I, for example, was interested in the issue of what will happen to all the buildings that no longer serve us as we enter this post-COVID era. Certainly there's many office towers that no longer host offices, but there are churches that no longer provide space for congregations, and other sites that were built in a way that no longer fits our modern life. So as I did some research on architecture, I found that buildings actually consume a lot of our energy, are one of the major users of energy, and that one of the chief functions of architecture these days is adaptive reuse and the greening of architecture. And that became a very important dialogue for me as a point of learning and really exchanging ideas on how we can live a more sustainable life in the ways that we choose to live in our built landscape. In talking about blog posts as learning tools, some of the blogs that I've written that have done very well have been highly surprising. For example, I wrote about touring a Frank Lloyd Wright building, a house built here in Oregon, and was surprised at how well it did and learned that there were a great many Frank Lloyd Wright fans out there. So I did a deeper dive in researching and reading about Frank Lloyd Wright. And one of the things I learned that he did was to use blocks that we probably see in preschools, or if you're a parent or grandparent like I am, probably have a Freuble blocks in your home. These are the blocks that are three-dimensional cubes, rectangles, cylinders, pyramids, archways. And Frank Lloyd Wright talked about the sensual experience of knowing architecture through his skin, because he had that sense of architecture as as geometric patterns, as geometric shapes that you moved around and played with. And for anybody who loves Frank Lloyd Wright, you know that if you go to something like his Unity building in Chicago, that becomes an experience of the cube and all its different forms. Or if you go to the Guggenheim in New York City, that is a spiral that has become a piece of architecture in which you can see ahead and behind you and view the art as it's coming up or as it's being left. Blogs also serve as a point of legacy. One of the things I am most grateful for is that my father wrote about a 60-page memoir, and I shared it after his death with all my cousins, because they learned a great deal, of course, about their families growing up on the farm during the Depression, which is perhaps the story for many of us, for our parents or our grandparents. And while sitting down and writing a memoir is daunting for me, writing short little 2 or 3 page blog posts on particular incidents that I remember that I think are interesting will, I hope, serve as a loose leaf memoir for my children and grandchildren. So what is daunting as an 80-page or 100-page or 150-page piece of work is very doable in collected little short segments. So I'm well aware that the audience for my blog posts for legacy may not be those who read it and perhaps comment and enjoy it right now, but it's really for the future generations. Blog posts are, of course, a great source of writing practice. And I'm not sure if it takes 10,000 hours to become an adept writer, but we certainly know that practice is important as long as one is continuing to learn and learn from other readers' comments, or from reading other posts, or from working on the craft, or learning about the craft, or writing about the craft. And so for any of us, I think if we look at our first blogs and our latest blogs, we can certainly see a difference in growth. And there is really nothing quite like, I think, the interaction on a blog. Although I try and write in literary journals and other places, the publication wait can often be 6 months between submission and publication, 6 months or longer. Whereas in Medium, you can post the blog in the morning and within 15 minutes have a response to what you have written, good, bad, or indifferent. Certainly some of the negative comments I've received have been real points of learning as far as, oh, that's a perspective I really didn't take into consideration. And perhaps you have had that same experience too, where you realize that you had a rather myopic view of a particular subject. The blog posts are, of course, anthology sources. I was invited to blog, I think, by first reading Ursula Le Guin's book, No Time to Spare. And Ursula Le Guin is a famed writer of science fiction. But in her older age, she wrote a blog and maintained a blog. And I think that her book, No Time to Spare, was published posthumously from her blog pages. So she writes about her cats, and she writes about growing older, as well as receiving or refusing, as the case may be, writing prizes and attending big conferences and big events, where she was honored after a career in which in her early years, frankly, she wasn't taken very seriously. So, so it becomes a life learning lesson for us. And it certainly was a model I thought I could emulate. Well, if Ursula Le Guin can do it, I guess I can do it too. I also wrote about writing for money. And this is not the traditional, how can I make more money on Medium kind of take on things. But writing has become, in some ways, really big business for those who are successful. I paid $50 to purchase a ticket to listen to David Sedaris read from his most recent anthology. Perhaps you have purchased tickets to listen to authors fill large auditoriums as well. And he was clearly taking notes at the audience response, the laughter or not, lack of laughter or groans as he read various pieces of his. So it was not only a tour about making money through the tour, but really probably about gathering responses and feedback and the opportunities for further content sales. Netflix recently made a multi-million-dollar purchase of Roald Dahl's content, literary archives. And so the big guys like Netflix are trying to compete now with Disney and others as far as owning the content and the right to characters that will probably be forthcoming on backpacks and t-shirts and little plastic dolls. So, so for the right person, creating really marketable content becomes a means to a very attractive pot at the end of the rainbow. I write also about spirituality, as I said, the intersection of aging and spirituality. And so for that, I refer to my blog, recent blog called Spiraling In, Spiraling Down, Spiraling Out. And it helps me, particularly, I think, as we approach the last third of life, put together what's important and what isn't, and find the frameworks that have been somewhat eternal for us, symbols like the spiral, in terms of what they do and what they can provide for us. So, so that is a fun part of using a blog too, is creating those kinds of pieces, going deeper and asking people for feedback and asking them to go deeper with you. I'd now like to open it up for questions and answers, or have you share with the group what you think are reasons for your blogging or for your posting. and any stories you want to share of blogs that have taken you by surprise, or ways that you have acted upon what others might have written about or learned from others. If there's any comments, I think they would appear in the comment section. I'm not seeing anything, so I don't know if I'm missing something. So at any rate, that's what I have found to be useful about my experience in blogging. The other things that have been important about writing is also learning what one thinks. And I think this is true for many of us. I wrote a recent blog post about Janis Joplin called Dear Janis Joplin. And while I had always loved her style of singing and her raw, inside out kind of appearance, it was the terrific recognition that I had that there were parts of her life with which I certainly resonated. Leaving Port Arthur, Texas, is not like leaving any town that is too small for you to really develop and grow into who you need to be. So, so that I would see as well. So I still am waiting. I don't see any comments. So the other reason for blog posts, oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I have, so no requests yet. One of the ways that is important for those who are on Medium is to write not only to be seen and to be heard, but to write for money. And I think that one of the things that we learned from Tony Stubblebine and others is that is that we really depend on quality for that, and that it is the quality of our writing. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. There are actually a few questions in the queue. I put a comment in the chat, and there are a few questions in the Q&A. I'm not sure, mine say in review, so I'm not sure if they're showing up for you.
Would you mind reading them for me?
Yeah, sure. I'll get to mine in a moment. The first one is from Sophie Pascal, and she asks, are you suggesting using Medium as a blog?
Yes, absolutely. I think that Medium is a great place to start with blog, in part because Medium has SEO authority. And so, for example, the blog post on Janice Ian that I posted on both Medium site and my site went out through Medium. And it would take a long time for, I think, an individual to gain the same authority that Medium does. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and ask my question as well. I'm just wondering, I find sometimes the terms get a little bit, there's blogs, there's posts, there's different styles and different genres of writing. I tend to think of a blog as being kind of like a public journal or a public diary. It's not necessarily whereas a post might be my writings on, a particular topic over time. I'm curious as to whether you're using that in the same way. And
Probably
go ahead.
using
Sorry.
those terms interchangeably. And I do think that that was my idea too when I first started posting, was that a blog was almost like a public journal.
Right.
But I do think that as I posted on Medium, I've been writing on Medium now for about a year and a half, that it became clear to me, and much to my surprise, that when one posts on the internet, you invite participation from many possible sources. And so one can learn and engage in dialogue, and it's a much more interactive opportunity than just, say, a journal that you would keep in your bedstand by your bed at night.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that it's just a journal made public isn't quite correct, because it is a public process, not a private process.
I get it. So it's more of a dialogue over time.
More of a dialogue, right?
My other question that's related to that is, and I think it's sort of implied in your answer, but when I post articles, like I tend to think of them posts as being more like articles. I keep them behind the paywall in Medium. But to reach maximum readership with a blog, if the goal is to expose your writing and to interact with as many people as possible, do you keep your blog behind the paywall, or do you just make it public access?
I do. But the blogs that I move to my private website are not behind a paywall. But they don't have nearly the potential exposure that I think a blog on Medium does, or a posting on Medium does. So that, I think, is a key difference. I would love to be as well known that I had 50,000 followers on my own blog site, but that is not the case yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others? If you want to pop up on the screen like the gentleman just did before, that would be another way of having a dialogue.
Just so you know, I am still seeing there's more topics in the chat section.
Okay. Would you mind going ahead and reading them?
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm just looking for where they begin. Okay. I'm currently on some of this looks like it's actually interchanged between individuals. Can you share a link to your legacy blogs referenced?
Sure.
That's a request from Diane Harrigan.
My Medium site is www.medium.com/SharonJo1411. So if you go to that, then I have put blogs in various list topics, and some of them are related to New York City or other kinds of events, in my past. So that would be an easy way to get there.
There's also an observation from Gwen Jones. Businesses are now blogging to gain trust and customer loyalty.
Yes. Well, I think there are, again, many purposes for blogs. And so there certainly are commercial purposes for blogs as well. I have a cousin who is a fine artist and generates sales off her blogs. She posts pictures of her paintings. And but I think that the relationship she has with the people who are likely to buy her art are more personal than commercial. I mean, it's sort of a blend of both. I would leave the question as to whether a commercially used blog gaining trust is successful. I'll leave that up to you.
There's a clarification question from Chris Downey.
Sure.
who asks, are you saying your Medium posts are behind the paywall and your personal blog posts are friend links?
My Medium blogs are behind the paywall, and my personal blogs are available to anybody who wants to look at it. That's under www.common-sage.com. So my personal blog is called Common-Sage, and that's available to anybody. But it's at this stage is mostly friends and family and extended people who have found me by accident who are on that site.
I think if I can interpolate what Chris Downey's asking, I think the question is if you're putting your personal blogs on Medium but using the friend links to share out.
I am not using the friend links.
You're not.
Share.
Yeah, you have your separate webpage.
I have my separate webpage. Yes.
Okay, and VC was kind enough to post a link to your profile. It looks like medium.com/@Sharon Jo 1411.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Gwen Jones Trust, i.e. giving suggestions to customers on how-tos. I think when you were talking about trust there a few minutes ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And VC has common-sage.com.
Right.
Then that's your personal website.
That's my personal website.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. We're up to date. Okay, that's
okay. Well, I appreciate the collaborative spirit of Medium.
It's a collaboration. Yeah, exactly.
So for those of
us, if anything else comes up, I'll
technologically savvy.
I'll put my hand up. Sure.
So, are there any other questions that people have? If not, I have appreciated this time. Together.
Just out of curiosity. Oh, okay. So are you ready for one more?
Sure.
Karen Liptak asks, how does one get started blogging on Medium?
Well, I think it's useful to join Medium as a member. So just go to www.medium.com, and there you should find a front page that will invite you to join, or you can just start blogging. And really, it's the blog template and profile are very intuitive and very simple to follow. So you can do that. And like anything else, it takes a little bit to start building your audience. And but perseverance, I think, is the key, as it is to much in life. Just stick with it, and over time, you can find your audience, find the publications with which you're a fit, find the niches with which you're a fit, find those that aren't a good fit, and go from there.
And Gwen Jones, who asked a few previous questions,
Sure.
says, thank you for sharing your wisdom today. Karen Liptak says, thank you. I think people are basically signing out, and I'll add my voice. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you all.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. And to those who said so, thank you. You're welcome, Sophie, and others. Cheers.